welcome back to our next episode of People Perspectives. I'm Travis Brashear with Lockton, and if you've tuned in the past few episodes, you know we started out down this journey talking mostly about the people and resources and tools at Lockton that we use and bring to bear to help our clients with their HR-related needs. And today we're taking a detour from that path, and we're going to talk to one of our favorite clients and one of my favorite people in the industry. Welcome the VP, Vice President of Human Resources for BMC, Lynn Moffett. Thank you for making the time to spend with us today.
Well, thank you. Excited to be here.
So, Lynn, you got a lot on your plate. We've known each other through the benefits lens, but that's a tiny corner of the work that you do every day. And so we're going to get into the bigger picture, the bigger issues around human resources. And I know you do a lot of speaking on the subject, and you're very proud of the things that you've done here at BMC. So we want the listeners to be able to hear all about that. But before we get to all of that, you have to tell us a little bit about yourself. So How did you end up in the HR industry, and how did you end up in Houston, Texas?
Well, it's always an interesting story to find out how people end up getting into the HR field, because a lot of people don't necessarily start out in the HR field, and
Right.
I am absolutely no exception. So I actually graduated in the accounting field. I went into public accounting. I went into a firm that you may have heard of called Arthur Andersen. And so a long time ago, and I was going the pure accounting and finance route. And ultimately, I ended up getting a great opportunity to focus in on employee benefit plan auditing. And it's with picking up that skill that ultimately led me to when we were ultimately moving to Houston, and also Arthur Andersen was getting embroiled in the Enron scandal. It led me to a position in industry that was within the HR space. And so it was within industry, and they were looking specifically for a CPA, but somebody who also had employee benefits experience. And so that fit me really well. And that's ultimately how I got over into the HR space. And I've never looked back. So I started off in the total reward space, as you mentioned. Benefits for a long time was really kind of one of my core areas,
Yep.
and I've since then expanded out into the rest of the total reward space, but also now from a business partner as well as payroll, and I've also run HRIS and facilities at various points within my career. So it's been just a really exciting journey in terms of where I was able to really grab on to one new skill and just really take it into a completely different direction for my career.
And just keep adding.
Yes.
And so how long with BMC total?
In total, I've been here 12 years.
Okay. Yeah. And then how long in Houston?
So I've been here, this is my second time to live here in Houston. So originally I grew up in the Chicago area, and I ended up getting a scholarship to go to New Orleans. So where I graduated with that accounting degree. It was a great place to go to school, lots of fun. And ultimately we moved here to Houston the first time around with my husband's job move. And then we moved back to Louisiana. And then back in 2007, we decided to move here again for job-related reasons. So that's how I ended up here in Houston. Now, the great thing is that we also now have our surrounding family around us. So my parents are now here in the Houston area, as well as my in-laws. So it ended up being a really wonderful city, all around.
So that makes it a little easier to miss New Orleans, but you have to go back.
But it's still an easy drive, yes, right? It's only 6 hours away. So
do you get back some?
We do. We try and get back there maybe once a year or so, just for a long weekend. It's a wonderful city, so wonderful culture. Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great food.
Well, tell us a little bit about BMC. You don't have to go too deep, but it's a global name in the software business, and broader than that now. But you want to talk a little bit about the journey for BMC?
Right. Well, for those of you who don't know BMC Software, we may not necessarily be a household name. We are not a B2C company. We don't sell, your Apple Watches or anything cool like that in terms of individual tech. We sell into large enterprises. So we're an enterprise software company, and we have over 40 years of experience. So we've actually been around for a while, but we've been reinventing ourselves quite a bit, over those 40 years, as you might imagine. Any software company is going to need to stay around for over 40 years. You've got to continuously do that. And so, we really formulate the core of the backbone of your IT operations. And, we are known for some of our core IT products around mainframe software as well as around ITSM software. So those are just only a handful though of our products that we offer out there in the space. So you may, if you are using potentially a service desk ticketing system, you may be using one of BMC's products out there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So for more context for the people listening, global, right? People
Global.
all over the world. What are some of the bigger countries besides the United States?
So besides the United States, in fact, our largest population from an employee headcount perspective is now in India, and our largest office there is in Pune, India. So that's one of our main offices. We also have a large population in Israel as well as in the UK, but we are in over 35 countries globally. So we have a really wonderful global footprint in every single geographical region. Which makes for a very interesting and dynamic day every single day. And it's one of the things that I really do love about my job and the work that we do is that my team is global. And so you never really know what issue is going to come your way, but it definitely keeps us all on our toes.
It makes for some interesting travel, I imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
What's your favorite place that you've been outside the United States?
For
work.
For work. So what I would say is I absolutely loved visiting our Pune office in India. Now it's a little bit difficult to get to because you have to go, first of all, it's long, right? It is a long flight, but you have to actually connect through two different cities. But it is absolutely wonderful to see, again, so many people coming together. They have a wonderful office culture there. And it was so different to Houston, Texas, right? So that's what I absolutely loved. And they were so welcoming there. So for me, that was my favorite place to go.
Cool. Well, I think we should go.
I think so,
take me
yes.
next time. I've never been to India. Well, I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned, and I know enough to know that you've got this sort of people and spaces strategy or background or pillar or foundation. People and spaces. Talk a little bit about how we landed on connecting people and spaces. What's that mean to you guys?
Right. So underneath the umbrella of people and spaces, really think of people as the HR organization arm, right? So think about your traditional business partner, your payroll, your total rewards. And then spaces is really all about really the traditional real estate and facilities function. But putting them together really puts together a great employee experience overall. And putting those together is really so powerful. And as we really think about the overall strategy from our company's perspective, there's three core pillars that we do think about as it relates to our overall strategy and what we're driving as a function. Yep. And those areas are within the realm of culture, experience, and growth. And so those are really the three areas that we talk about quite a bit.
All right. So which one's your favorite one to talk about? Culture?
Culture. I love culture.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. So I know DEIB, pay equity, I know it's, a hot topic for you and something you're very passionate about. So give us a sense of what does that mean in the BMC world to you?
Right. So, for us, from a BMC perspective, really, we sit back and we think about DEIB and the work that we're doing in this space. We think about it first and foremost from our value proposition. And it's really our overall values that are so important to us as a company. And one of the things that I really love about BMC, two of our core values that we have are doing the right thing as well as prioritize people. And I think, really when you think about the work from a DEIB perspective, both of those values really kind of shine and really connect with that. And when I think about putting my total rewards hat on, and we think about the space around pay equity, pay transparency, that is probably one of the most rapid changing areas of total rewards that I have seen in quite some time. And one of the areas that we have been really proud of is just the work that we have been doing to get in front of all of the trends here from a pay transparency and a pay equity perspective. And it's also been important to us to not only do this work well internally, but to also then be able to talk a little bit about it more externally. And as a part of being able to do that external discussion around what we're doing, we also invited in then a company called the Fair Pay Certification. And they actually are external auditors that come in and they have certified us in terms of the work that we are doing on a pay equity perspective. Wow. So that is something that helps to support a lot of different accreditations or a lot of different, questionnaires that our customers even send in to us around what are your pay equity practices. So
it's like a seal of approval.
It's like a seal of approval. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And these are the things that help us to support all of our business propositions and our contracts ultimately with our global multinational customers, for whom these areas are also really important for us to be able to win their business too.
Is that tied to the growth piece, or is the growth sort of a personal growth, but also a business growth? I mean, is it
well, of course, we're always looking for business growth, right? But when we think about growth from the people perspective, then that's really tying into a lot of our talent management work that we have really instituted. And if you think about the hot topic of skills, right? That is all out in terms of really what companies are looking at, especially as you think about how technology is really evolving the skill landscape, and it's going to continue to really evolve that skill landscape.
Right.
So we're absolutely no different, and that is actually very much in the forefront of how do we get better around that conversation around skills? How do employees really identify what skills are needed for them to have to excel in their jobs today, but also to continue to grow in the future and to be future ready, to be ready for what are those new hot skills coming? And in tech, it's always rapidly coming,
so
but
somebody's coming behind you too, right? From a talent perspective?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
So what about the experience piece? How does that mix in?
On the experience piece, that really focuses in a lot on employee listening and getting really transparent around that feedback loop that we have with employees around employee listening and going out there, soliciting their feedback and understanding where we are from a culture perspective, and then getting the power back into the hands of the managers on how they can react to that feedback. So that's been a core part of how we've thought about experience and delivering that into the company.
Not to put you on too much of the spot, right? But give me an example of how, sort of the focus on the pay equity piece has changed the way you hire or the type of person you hire. Like, is there a noticeable before and after from a talent perspective that you can point to?
I wouldn't necessarily say there's not a noticeable before and after, but what I would say about the talent market is that they are demanding this pay transparency. So as we think about the why around why do you want to start going out with pay transparency, putting those band ranges out for your new hire positions before you may need to and before you're required to from just a compliance perspective. And really, we thought about this in 4 different ways. One, we start with the values, right? What is the right thing to do from a company perspective? And this is the right path for us to be on. But also, the reality is the talent market is just different. It's different than when I started in it. I'm not going to say how many years ago, but when I started, people didn't talk about what they were making. Right. Now they put it out on TikTok, right? And or in their blog. So it's just a different mindset and a different expectation. And people recognize that if they go through a talent and acquisition process where people aren't treating them fairly, that tells them an awful lot about the company to begin with. And then they're just going to not want to go seek you out and be a part of your company experience. Yeah.
Just for a little more context for the audience, if we look at the pie of the types of people that work here, engineering types, what, 60%, 70%, 80%?
It's going to be probably about a third to a fourth of the company is more technical based, and then of course we do have quite a large sales force as well, and then we've got customer support, so a huge arm around customer success, customer support, services, being able to install the software, and then as you think about just general other G&A functions, right? So all the standard ones, right? People, corporate finance.
So you're really competing across a pretty broad spectrum of, let's call it competitors, industry competitors, depending upon which of those buckets people fall in.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What is that like in Houston? So we've talked about Houston, diversifying from the oil and gas world for decades now.
Right.
And we know, California, technology piece, sort of, Austin is sort of known for that. But I mean, you guys are bringing that talent from all over the world to Houston, Texas. What's that like, and what's the reaction to those people coming here? Like, how hard is that?
Well, one, I think BMC has taken a very flexible approach to talent as we think about where we can potentially source that talent. And I think in a very competitive marketplace, that's a really important perspective to have as a company on where are you working? How are you working? And so although Houston is one of our main offices, we do have an office out there in California, so we can tap into that market. And we do have people who are all, who work from home. And as I mentioned, we're in all these other different countries. So you've really got to think about where are your talent markets, what is it that you need, and where can you grab those niche talent skills. And sometimes you're going to have to be flexible on that. What I would say overall, when people come here to Houston and visit, is that they really love the city. It's a great place to be. Now, for some people who come in from colder climates, it's a little warm, so it takes a little bit to get used to. But I would say that overall, people have just a really good reaction to Houston. It's a very international city, so I think it's very easy to settle in as well.
Yeah, we used to say it's hard to get people to come, but once they're here, it's really hard to get them to leave.
Agree.
It's very, one of the things I like most about it, it's just very international. From the oil and gas world, people are coming and going from all over, so it tends to be a very welcoming place overall.
Absolutely.
So that's great. Well, tell me a little bit about, so this is your sales opportunity for BMC. I know you have a personal sort of rebound story.
I do.
You had a great experience, but you left to try something else. You came back. And give us a little bit of insight into sort of that special sauce that was like, okay, I've got to go back,
right?
Because they had something that maybe I didn't experience or you were missing.
I think it's always good as we talk about even just the hot topic of skills. Whenever you go out to and you experience something different in your career, you're always going to gain different skills and different perspectives and experiences. And I certainly absolutely had that in my 1 year away from BMC. But as I mentioned, there is something really special here about BMC. And I think it's a blend of, first of all, the people. The people here are wonderful to work with. And it doesn't matter whether or not they're here in Houston, or they're in India, or they're in any of our other countries that we work in. I think we all share a very common culture. And it does come back to those values and doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It's
amazing how simple that is.
It is. It is amazing. And it makes it very easy for all of us to work together when we know that we're working towards that overall common goal. And again, it was great to go out and get that experience and bring that back in and bring in some new skills. But I'm very happy to be back here at BMC.
That's cool. Yeah. That's very cool. All right, so the tougher questions. When you look down the road, like a lot has changed post-COVID in particular. What do you see coming on the horizon as your next big thing? So we're going to get this pay equity piece right. You're going to blend that into the culture of doing the right thing, and you're already down that path. But can you see something else, coming down the path that you're going to have to deal with, that you're already thinking about?
Well, I would say that I think technology is definitely very much at an inflection point when we think about AI and how that's going to impact HR and how that's going to overall impact the skills that are needed within the function and how you're going to ultimately deliver that employee experience, out there to employees. And there's amazing promise in that technology. And I think it can really help to deliver in ways for us to scale better in certain areas, to scale in ways that are financially viable from a company perspective, but to really bring a consistent look and feel to the company as well. So I think that's the promise. Now, of course, you got to get through the change curve. You got to get that, you have to get the technology up and going, right? And understand that. And there's certainly, you can't necessarily just plunge headlong into it. You've got to understand the risk factors. You've got to understand from a privacy perspective, what are the right pieces of technology
bring people along with you so that they feel it's safe, right?
Yes.
That's the bulk of the conversation, right?
Absolutely.
We're okay with it, the outcome, as long as it doesn't have all these other crazy consequences.
Yeah.
Well, think about your younger self and what sort of coming in the world, and sort of talk a little bit to the younger person who's out there potentially thinking about, they're in HR or they don't know how they got here, but they don't know what the future looks like. Clearly, you've had an amazingly successful career. So any words of wisdom for the young version of yourself out there in the HR space?
What I would say is don't ever discount an opportunity. And I'm going to go back to that opportunity that I had at Arthur Andersen to learn deeper on employee benefit plan auditing. I ended up getting asked to go to a specific training, and they had this wonderful training center in St. Charles. In fact, Arthur Andersen was well known for its just amazing continuing education that they had within the company. But the reason why I was asked to do it was because somebody went out on maternity leave. So again, happenstance, I just happened to be in the right place, the right time. And employee benefit plan auditing wasn't exactly the sexiest piece of work from an audit perspective. So it really wasn't. It was a bit more like our summertime work. It didn't exactly get the best rates either out there. But I was excited to go and learn it. It was something new. And it ultimately led into a wonderful career for me and something that I have absolutely loved. And I continue to learn every single day. The world is so, it changes every single day. Yeah. And, getting those opportunities to learn and to grow and to continuously challenge yourself. Sometimes it can be a lot, right, in terms of the change, but it's so important. And so what I would say to my younger self and to anyone who is really young in career, don't discount opportunities that come your way, even if maybe they sound on the surface, that might not be something that you want to go in and do for the next 20 years.
It may not be the sexiest thing at the time.
That's right.
You don't know where it's going to take you down the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So just being open to that. Mm-hmm. And then I know you have a couple of favorite places that you hang out with your peers, and you've got a community. Can you mention a couple of those? Is that fair game? Where would you recommend other HR executives spend their time? What are your favorite places? In
terms of overall organizations, certainly, from a certification perspective, I grew up along the World at Work lines because from just a total reward certification perspective, yeah. I think they do a wonderful job of educating benefits and compensation professionals to really grow up in the career. And they offer wonderful certification courses that really kind of get you out there from a community perspective. Yeah. What I would say now in terms of there's multiple different CHRO or executive HR groups that I'm a part of now, and it probably really doesn't matter the name on the group. It matters a lot about just getting out there and experiencing the community and hearing from others around what's your experience, what are you doing in this space, because what's great about doing that is that you learn, one, you're not alone. So a lot of your hot topics and a lot of your issues that you have, other people are experiencing, and you also pick up on really great ideas that other people have tried, and you ultimately build a great network that you can leverage when you do have something else going on that you need to reach out to somebody and say, hey, have you experienced this? Help me, and help me just understand from a more detailed level, how did you actually get this done and get it over?
Yeah, because I think when you at the top levels of HR, it can be a lonely space, mm-hmm. right? And I know we've had some of this conversation before, but you've got to be sort of the advisor to the business, mm-hmm. and then you also can't always share everything with everybody around you, and so you have to have a peer group. A support group, I guess, around you is a great thing.
It is. It absolutely is.
Good. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sharing this with us. It's fascinating, and I always learn something more, a little deeper and a little broader every time that we get a chance to talk. And it's been a big focus, for us at Lockton to get outside of our comfort zone around just core benefits and start to help in some of these areas. And so you've seen Rebecca Crawlin and others, mm-hmm. as part of these videos where we're bringing talent in to try to help clients think through this. And so it's great for you to dive in, share a little bit more, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
And we can't wait to see what's next. We also appreciate you being a client. So thank
Absolutely.
You. Thank you for that. But
thank you for the partnership.
This is a great way to share your story, and we look forward to getting it out there. So
sounds great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on People Perspectives.